Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our second CopyPress webinar. I think you guys are going to really enjoy today's content. We have a great speaker for you, and I will go ahead and introduce him now. Our speaker today is Carlos Del Rio. He's the Director of Conversion Strategy for Unbounce. Carlos is the co-author of User Driving Change, Give Them What They Want, and a strategic framework for emerging media. He has a wonderful beard, and if we're lucky, we may hear his dog talk apparently during the webinar. Um, so we're all excited about that. So he's going to share a case study. Before we go into that, really quickly, I wanted to remind everybody, if you weren't here last time, we're going to go ahead and give 30% off your first month's order. Use the coupon code WEB919 on the CopyPress site when you're putting in your information, and we'll give you that discount for attending the webinar today. We're also recording the webinar today, so last time we sent out the slides via email. This time we're going to be sending out actual video and audio. Throughout the presentation, feel free to add your questions in the question box, and Nicole will be writing down your questions and we'll review them after. So if you have a question that pops up, go ahead and feel free to shoot it out there and don't wait for the end of the presentation. And with all of that said, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Carlos.
Good morning. Okay, so I'm a little sick today, so bear with me if there are a couple of pauses where I might grab a little bit of tea or something of the like. Anyways, today I'm going to be showing you how to make your content go viral using the new guide to online marketing as an example. So I'm a man with a really big beard. I have an obsession with otters. I work at Unbounce, which is a what you see is what you get editor for building landing pages. And then we do all of the delivery, splitting, and sort of statistical analysis to tell you which one of them is performing best for your conversion goals. And one of the things that we are well known for is our new guide to online marketing, which has done really amazingly over the last few years. Did you turn over keyboard control? Oh, here we go. So if you want to be really successful in making something that is viral, like a piece of content that people just really want to share, you have to go incredibly big. As you can see here, this is the new guide to online marketing. Standing up next to me, it's 15,000 pixels. It's 16,000 words. It covers 6 months of everything that you're going to need to do, including call outs to which type of online marketing that you should be using at different points, and showing next to it what our traffic looked like as we went through this process in our first 6 months. The way that we started this is that Ollie Gardner, who wrote this amazing piece, he went to the biggest community that he could find in his area, right? So since we were talking about online marketing, we chose SEO Moz. You can see that they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, hundreds of thousands followers, lots of likes. They have just a really huge community. And we gave this piece of content to them first for free, to get a lot of information, a lot of people seeing it, to get a lot of interest, and to get in front of people who probably had never heard of us before. And the results of this is that we got a lot of tweets. Because people already loved the venue that we started sharing on, we got 17,000 tweets about the original posting on SEO Moz. We drove lots of traffic for them. We got a super, super powerful link out of it because they got so much attention, because they had such good social signals, such good links into the content, that we started to show up really well as well. So we have a page on Unbounce that has gotten over 5,000 tweets about it, and we've had almost as many page views as the original piece had. So our content with our branding on it and so forth was seen twice as much because we were willing to share it on somebody else's site first and kind of take in some of the peripheral values as opposed to just trying to hoard it on our blog, which is nowhere near as read. So part of how we drove a lot of the social traffic was that we started using pay with a tweet, which is kind of a fun service that lets you do something like a download that after a person has tweeted, the system sees that there is a tweet out and then gives them access to being able to download it. So we thought that this would be a really good way to compound our sort of social signals and get a lot of people seeing that other people were reading this and then become interested and say, oh, I want to see this piece of content as well. And you can see here, if you go to a bit.ly link, you can see the full case study. We wrote up exactly how we built this page, what our results were when we first launched it. So 70% of people, we were using KISS Insights, which is now called Qualaroo, I believe. 70% of people said that they felt that it was entirely fair to trade a tweet for getting a download. So that's pretty nice. We found out that quite a few people would prefer to give an email. Now, one of the things that you have to remember in doing social media is that in spite of the fact that Facebook is huge and Twitter is also very big, there are literally millions of people and that don't use it. So having an email option really is an idea that everybody should be looking at right from the beginning. There are going to be plenty of times when you get more out of having email than you do out of pushing social. We found that only 12.8% of the visitors were even willing to share. So in spite of the fact that 70% thought that it was a fair trade, the vast majority of those people did not in fact trade us. We also found that almost 40% of people deleted their tweet within 24 hours of putting it out. Most of those people deleted it within about 45 minutes. Oops. So this is what we saw when we did a test to put email versus pay with a tweet. We found that we had far better conversion rates by letting people give us their email. We also made one change to the original that was able to get us from being a 12% to 16, almost 17% conversion rate out of the original version of the page. So this test happened about a year after we initially launched the pay with the tweet. So when you have a really good piece of content, something that is well centered for people to pass it on to their friends and coworkers, it is very easy to get them to basically trade you for it and engage in taking your content. In our case, we used an infographic because that's something that we had good resources for. A lot of people use things like white papers or just content on their blog or special offers. You really just have to think about what is the value that you have that is going to be most interesting and most engaging for your potential customer. You have to really get into their head and say, what is it that I have that they want? And put them right on that place where it's almost good enough to pay for, or it is entirely good enough to pay for them to be really excited about passing it on to the other people in their network. So in choosing something like email versus just a social push, you have to find a balance in the way that you go about it. There are always going to be people who just don't feel comfortable with sharing that they've downloaded something. One of the biggest responses that we got during subsequent surveys was that most people didn't know whether the content was going to be something that they wanted to kind of give an editorial thumbs up to. Now, even though we try to be very clear that this is a huge infographic and 63 pages telling them 6 months worth of marketing information, people still really in their gut weren't sure whether they wanted to be associated with us until after they were finished reading it. And a lot of people, the way that they deal with anything that is social is that they either tweet it and then immediately delete it, or in the case of Facebook, you can actually set a lot of your privacy settings so that the only people that see the things that you share from other sites are you or a very small group of people. So when you go about doing social media, you really have to think about what is it that is going to be compelling for them to continue to be associated with you, and what is it that is going to be a compelling follow-up. Same thing with email, because if you get into somebody's email box, the same thing, you have to have some sort of follow-up. If you're collecting email addresses, but you're not actually using them for anything, it's not quite as valuable as if you really do have a follow-up program for making contact and creating a community out of the interaction that they are having with you. Social media is almost always really centered around creating a reason for people to continue to interact with you. So in the case of our follow-up emails, you see here we have our chiclets for all of the major social media. There are two options that you can do with this same setup, right? You can either set all of these chiclets up so that when a person clicks on them, it shares the page with their connections. Or you can set it up so that these kinds of chiclets go to your company's social media pages. If you don't have social media pages that you are actively supporting, you shouldn't be trying to drive social media traffic. If you're not supporting people, they really do kind of back away. And in the case of the younger audiences, they actually will take on a negative affinity for your brand if you're not supporting the social media platform that you're sending them to. Older people, it's not as bad, and a lot of older demographics don't actually care whether you're supporting the platform. They just like that you have it. So to put into perspective what it looked like for us in doing this huge piece, I mean, it took months to create the noob guide. You can see that right at the beginning, we had the yellow line there is all of our traffic for this page. We had mostly traffic coming from SEO Moz, some traffic coming in from search, people coming into it from our blog. You can see over about 60 days that more or less petered out. And it took well over 8 months from the time that we launched this for social media really to hit. It was all the way in September. We launched this thing in February. It was all the way in September that we started to see a lot of social media traffic. You have to be patient if you're dealing with social media. If you make something really amazing, keep talking about it. Just keep sharing it with people. Eventually you'll find the right crowd to be your support, to be your huge fans and your evangelists out in the social media space. You can see here that most of our traffic ended up coming from StumbleUpon. We didn't directly go to StumbleUpon. We were doing pay with a tweet and keeping the thing in front of people, which essentially we started to expand our visibility for the brand to the point where once people started running into our content on StumbleUpon, they'd already seen us. They already knew what this was. They already knew that they liked it, and they started sharing it there on StumbleUpon. By October, after our initial launch, almost all of our traffic was coming from StumbleUpon, and that might make you think, oh, StumbleUpon is the answer. But the reality is, if we hadn't been being shared on Twitter and on Facebook, we probably would not have seen this same level of interactivity from the place where we did end up getting a vast majority of our traffic. For the most part, we have never seen Facebook likes being a driver of real traffic. Facebook likes are nice. They kind of keep whatever your post is in the streams of the people who are connected, but that doesn't actually get you in front of anybody new. It's the Facebook shares that end up being really important. We found that once you can, if you're doing something that is graphical, something that kind of touches upon that real easy communication that come from images, StumbleUpon always does great for us in our infographics, but it doesn't necessarily do well for our pure content pieces. Even though it seems like people would probably give you fake email addresses, we do see a lot of our emails make it to their intended target. We had very little overlap. We did see that when you do a really large content piece, that people will come back in later and download it a second time with the same email address, even though they could just search their email. They tend not to. They tend to come back and get it a second time. That's not necessarily bad. It means that people have multiple copies. Once you have something into a person's email, or you get them to actually download it, they tend to pass it around a lot. So make sure that any type of content that you're using as a download, you have some good branding on it. And then again, remember that people do delete tweets, and there are only a portion of any person's community within Twitter that see any given post that they put out. Some people think that it may be as low as only 1 in 5 people that follow a person on Twitter see any individual tweet that they put out. If you are very good about making your pay with a tweet retweetable, so this is maybe in the range of 120 characters total. Make sure that you have a pre-shortened link. Make sure that you've got a very compelling title for sharing. Don't overload it with hashtags. You can see some good retweets, which will keep the volume up a little bit. But as you can see here, 8,700 tweets resulted in 3,500 visits for us. That's not a lot. That's more than 2 tweets per visit that we received. On the other hand, once we were able to hit StumbleUpon, we got 111,000 thumbs up on StumbleUpon. That drove nearly 1 million page views in total in the 2 years that we have been running this. When you have a really good piece, it will have longevity. You know that you're making a really good piece of content if you can genuinely say 2 years from now, this is still going to be valuable. You can even say a year from now, this is still going to be valuable. That's really what your benchmark should be for defining, have I made a good piece of content? Because social media, while often it has this really explosive effect, much of the time the explosive effect does not happen until months after, while you've been grooming it the entire time. And even our social media, we've done pretty consistently well, but I would say really we only have a 30% hit rate. Probably 7 out of every 10 things that we put out with the intent of this is going to be really great, 7 out of 10 of them they're just mediocre or below average. And it's that 3 and 10 that really get out there. Like we recently launched a ultimate guide to A/B testing. That one's been doing really well. The noob guide does really well. Uh, but our landing page rehab, which I think is one of our uh, best pieces of content, is middling compared to the others. So we're giving a special offer to all of you who are on this webinar. If you go to bit.ly/unsteal and use the code unsteal, you'll get 50% off your first 3 months with Unbounce. This does expire on December 31st, though. Hopefully, you will be able to get better results out of the things that you do by doing some basic tests in the way that you deliver your content to the viewer, or in the way that you present the content, which will help you make sure that you get more shares out of this. In the end, I think that the best thing that you can do to make sure that you're making content that goes viral is to take a lot of your ego out of it. And when you show people what you're proposing to put out, if they say things that are negative about it, take them to heart, and immediately think, is there a way that you can get across this one or two people's barriers to wanting to share it? And you'll probably be able to turn that into something that is far more powerful for your intended purposes.
All right, thanks, Carlos. That was really, really interesting. We're going to go ahead and do a Q&A now. So if you have questions for Carlos on the viral marketing side, I think now would be a good time to go ahead and ask them in the question box. Um, I also have some questions. All right. So first question, I guess, from my side is, how do you see that a small business can utilize this case study as a template for success? So obviously, I mean, the noob guide itself, right, kind of walks through the the process. But I mean, like, let's say that I'm a really small business, not just what classifies as a small business, but somebody who's maybe just a single webmaster. Um, you know, how can they use what you guys did with this as a template for how they can succeed?
I think one of the first things that you should be looking at is what is it that you personally have a passion about. The things that you really love are going to be much more engaging. If you find a way to connect the things that you would spend your free time doing with the community that you're trying to make a piece of viral content for, you'll end up with some great hooks in there. Look towards what is it that is really important to the viewer. If you put essentially what you want out of them, such as them using your product or them coming and giving you a phone call, as almost the last thing on the checklist, you will get some really good attention. So if, let's say, you're trying to connect with webmasters, you have to look at what are the problems that they're having. If you're trying to connect with people who are in the neighborhood around your record store, then you have to connect with what is it like to be in that community. You have to make it very clear to them that you are there for them, and they will be very interested in seeing your content in the long run, and very likely to share what they like about you.
So one other question I had when we were looking at that was, how much of your how much kind of groundwork went into the promotion side? And what I mean is, like, when we're doing social promotions just for CopyPress, obviously, like, my personal network comes into play there, and we have a pretty good sized Facebook page we're able to utilize. Um, I mean, how much of that really helped in this? So, for example, like, uh, you know, content you've already put on UMAs, how much did that play into this? Because I think that's one thing that people don't understand when they're kind of taking these things under is content's good or content's really important, but also doing, the foundational labor to be able to push that content out is goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I would say if you're trying to do a big piece, you probably want to have planned 30 days of what you're going to do to keep it rolling. You also want to make sure that you aren't dropping off a cliff. So if you're going to launch a really big piece, you also want to make sure that there is some follow-up content. Because if people come to you and there's this really great thing and then there's nothing else of interest, they're not going to share it because they feel less sort of less belief in that you're going to be an ongoing resource and that they want to be associated with you. So you really want to take on something like, okay, we're going to drop this really big piece on uh, Tuesday, and then we're going to have a blog post, or we're going to have extra activity on our social media channels uh, for the entire week, and then we're going to have um, an extra blog post every week for a month, and we're going to uh, set up some auto tweets to share the this content with a relevant hash group, every other day for an entire month, and we're going to go out on Facebook and ask our friends to like and share, and really just talk to everybody. Like I said in the Q&A from the earlier part, you have to talk about yourself if you're going to get people to talk about you, and you have to have something that you really believe in and that is focused on the needs of the target audience to get them to share it with anybody else.
Yeah, one thing that you said that I found interesting too was that likes don't lead necessarily to traffic. Was that a correlation? Like, you guys had a good amount of likes and you just didn't see that the traffic came from them? Because the reason I found it interesting is because based on Edge Rank, you guys are an image. It was an image that you were promoting, right? So theoretically,
Yeah.
those likes should have gotten you more visibility in the newsfeed. Images only really come after video in terms of engagement content. So I'm just wondering if you guys saw like a really high correlation or low correlation, like you got a bunch of likes and the 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 volume of traffic just wasn't there.
We got a lot of likes. We got very little traffic from Facebook, particularly because we were essentially putting out image content.
Yep.
People looked at the image on Facebook and did not come across to our site to see the full document.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So they felt they already got the content essentially in the news feed. So what's the point in going to the page?
Right.
All right. What could you have done better? I mean, it's when we do stuff, even when it's a home run, I always try to look at, what could have been done better. Um, what can we improve on next time? And this is interesting because you guys have actually had this content out for a long time. So there may have been tweaks you've done since then.
Yeah, I think the thing that we could have done better is that we should have started rewriting it immediately. Um, since it has been around for 2 years, it 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 is something that there there stands to be a version two. Um, and I think that if you're going to do something that's really huge and content based, um, relaunching it a year later can be amazing, right? Because you just start getting some refreshed links. You start getting a new, really powerful, huge page on your site. Always be thinking about how you can return to the content that's showing you a lot of love, because then you can even get all of the people who have already seen the original to talk about it again. And they're very primed to immediately share it because they already know that they like it, and they don't necessarily have to read it a second time to know that it's really great. So be planning how to just make the next revision. So if you've got something that you really believe should have been a home run and it landed in the field, redo it and launch it 3 months later. Just like keep making iterative improvement. It's the same concept as doing the testing on your pages where you're getting people to share it. Is just think, what is one more little bit of value that I can put into this? That's what we wish we had in planning. I mean, particularly because we did a huge infographic. We should have already had in our minds, how do we get this printed out as a poster? Who do we send them to buy this as a poster so that this ends up on a lot of people's walls? Infographics are amazing. Lots of people want to print them out. It's kind of a pain to print them out on a normal printer. So set up a printing solution for any of your infographics.
Cool. So beyond infographics, what type of content would have worked well for this exercise? I mean, you named some of them, but obviously, based on the different platforms you got traffic from. So, one of the things that you saw or that you've seen since is that images do really well on Stumble, right? A lot of your traffic came from
Yeah.
Stumble. So white papers probably wouldn't have worked as well in this case. What other type, and it can open it up. So infographics are just one type of image. And we're, especially at CopyPress, we're playing around a lot more with illustrations than just pure infographics. And there's a pretty huge difference, right? So, what type of content would have worked well for this or that you might explore next time?
I think a series of illustrations can work very well, in the same way that doing short videos. When I say short videos, I mean pretend you have it's like a commercial. You have to do less than a minute, so somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute, that explains some sort of core concept that relates to your business. That's the kind of thing that you can turn into a series. That's the kind of thing where you can hook somebody with one, and then have from that page a link into seeing some others and share this kind of thing. That can be huge, particularly if you're not really stable with what is going to hit your market well. This is the kind of thing where you can just keep throwing spaghetti against the wall, right? Like doing a 30-second to a minute video each week can give you, by the end of a year, you've got 52 videos that take less than a half an hour to watch all of them, and your entire next year plan can revolve only around the ones that people actually liked and shared.
Cool. So, did you guys use any paid social media? So, Stumble, for example, we do a lot of social seeding using their paid platform. And so, when I say seeding, we're really just trying to get the ball like in motion with it. Um, did you guys do any of that? And I guess if not, do you think those could help or hurt? I guess it's dependent. You know, Facebook's really expensive, obviously, and if you're not seeing a lot of traffic, you could spend a lot of money quickly with not a lot of results in this case. And Twitter is still not, you know, I guess
Well monetized.
being widely used and self-service issues, right?
Yeah.
So, did you guys use anything? And if not, do you think any one of them could have been helpful or any of them harmful?
No, we did not use any paid. I do think that we should have done Stumble Upon paid. um, because I think that we could have gotten traction earlier. Um, but you should really only do that for the things that are going to be really, I think, to that segment. So if you're doing a video or an image or an infographic, I think stumble upon paid to get your ball rolling can get you going earlier. The drawback is that uh, if you're not kind of ready to have more content, uh, you you can sort of keep your ceiling down on stumble upon. So if you're going to start buying the stumble upon traffic, I would not start buying it the same week that you launch your major piece. I would start it after you've done three to five more kind of smaller pieces, so that anybody who does come in, if they do stay, that they have something more to engage with. So, start your stumble upon a few days to a week after your major piece.
Yeah, but the good thing that we find with Stumble Upon is usually we'll seed with, like $100, and there's three different tiers. We find the 10-cent tier to be the best quality traffic for us. So you get 1,000 stumbles, and usually you'll see whether a piece is going to have viral uptake within that time frame. So about 33% of the time, from the first 1,000 stumbles that we pay for, we'll see the growth rate go to about 4,000 organic stumbles or more. Um,
Yeah.
now the downside there, I mean, this stumble, so it's direct traffic. It's not people necessarily reviewing or voting. Um, but what it does do is it gets a lot of traffic that then we're seeing some pretty quality links and ancillary traffic coming from. But it's definitely not a very expensive route to go from a social media side, and it's really easy to use.
Yes. I mean, I think social media is all about those kinds of tangential and basically just kind of feeling interactions. So, like the brand's value of social media is huge. The direct traffic value is not very big. We have a lot of people that if you use social media as first touch, if you're doing like first touch tracking, social media is really big. But when we
Mhm.
do last touch tracking, social media is tiny.
Right. So I guess that leads into the next question. And one of the things I thought about was, were you guys able to see, like, actually track paying customers? I'm sure people became paying customers from this, but actually track them through, because one of the great things that I saw from the study, and one of the benefits from the change for the pay for tweet model to the email models, now you have a great way to actually utilize a CRM tool and get back in there and remarket to that group of people, right?
Right.
It's obviously a lot of people that are interested in this content, so they're qualified buyers, and if you put them into a good acquisition funnel, you can convert a lot of them. And so I was wondering if you guys had any stats on actual conversions, like in terms of dollars from the campaigns.
We do. I'm not allowed to share dollar
Yeah.
conversions. Um, what we what we tried to do was put in a code inside of the infographics so that we could track the usage of that code. Um, we also do multi-touch tracking. Through multi-touch tracking, we can see that there are a lot of people who eventually sign up who do interact with the Noob Guide at some point. We're looking at probably 8 to 12% of the people who sign up with us do interact with the Noob Guide at some point. However, we've only had 4 people use the code, to my knowledge. Out of
Okay.
thousands and thousands of downloads, only 4 people used the code to get 50% off their first 3 months. Um, and we see almost no direct buys from landing on the Noob Guide.
Did now with the email list, did you guys use any type of acquisition sequence in order to like do anything with those emails beyond just the trade?
No, we did the trade and then we sent them a follow-up email thanking them. I believe that our follow-up email did include the code that was the inside of the infographic, just kind of hoping that we could sort of spur that along and uh, it also had a share with a friend option. We did not see a huge amount of action on the share with a friend. We did see that we had sort of a lower usage of people tweeting about the fact that they had downloaded it. Um, I think that if you're doing email, there's always a good option to have your follow-up say share this with share this on Twitter and Facebook, and vice versa. If you're doing pay with a tweet, there's always a good option of having your thank you page say, would you like this sent to your email also?
Hmm.
That way you get both.
Right. And then another thing that just popped in my head was, did you guys ever think about retargeting options with the landing page? So like, you could target those users past like with media buying.
Yeah, we do some retargeting. We have not started a retargeting campaign based off of the the noob guide. Uh, Unfortunately, we had a little bit of trouble really assessing what what a good message would be for the retargeting, because we see a 98% bounce rate from the noob guide page, because essentially everybody comes, downloads, and then goes on about their business. Almost nobody goes back into the website. So it's it's unclear the way that we should be marketing them, and it's been a it's been sort of it's been sort of a difficult decision to make.
Okay. And then one thing I wanted to touch on, I mean, this is one of the questions, and there are some questions and answers on our blog today. But just for people that are here, and also the people that we're going to send this video out to, um, what does unbounce.com focus on doing for webmasters? Because I mean, your core business is different than the viral marketing presentation that you did. And I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that people know exactly what Unbounce does, and how it can help them.
So we have a what you see is what you get editor. You can drag and drop to build a page. We try to make it very easy for people who don't have coding skills to be able to make something for their marketing. We also have one button click to duplicate the page so that you can make some changes, so that you can sort of test, do the A/B test of one against the other. Then we offer you some reporting on which one is doing the thing that you most want. We have dozens of templates right now to get you started, and in the coming quarter we should get all the way up to about 90 templates, including tablet and mobile templates.
Cool. Sounds good. So just wanted to, again, these questions are on our blog today. Just want to thank everybody for attending.